Welcome back, everyone. On the same day, Nigeria got a nod for two different kinds of loans. One internally, the other came from the outside. The board of the International Monetary Fund, IMF, approved the sum of $3.4 billion to support Nigeria's COVID-19 fight. The emergency financial assistance to Nigeria is the highest so far to any member country. Let's speak with the Minister of Finance on these issues. Mr. Zainab Ahmed joins us via Skype from Abuja. Thank you, Honorable Minister, for joining us this time. Let me begin the conversation tonight with you on the $3.4 billion loan from the IMF. How many years is the loan for?
Well, thank you, Charles. This $3.4 billion loan is to be paid over a period of 5 years, but before the repayment starts, we have a moratorium period of 3.25 years. So altogether, it means we're looking at 8 years and 8.25 years. It is a facility with an interest cost of 1%, and the financial package is for assistance because of this COVID-19 pandemic and also the shock that we have had in terms of the crash of the crude oil price. It's a broad support, it's for budget support, it's to help the economy to stabilize from the significant decline in the revenues from oil and gas, as well as the large expenditure on the health to curtail to manage the health crisis.
So, Honorable Minister, so if you look at the structure of that loan, correct me if I'm wrong. From what I am hearing, is that the federal government may be getting a naira equivalent of it, and the CBN is getting a dollar equivalent of this. What is the CBN going to be making use of that for?
Well, it is a dollar currency loan, so it will come into a special account that we open in the CBN, and we will access the fund and then convert it into naira. So yes, it is coming into the CBN as dollars, but the amount we're using will be in naira.
In that sense, I spoke earlier with the Senate spokesperson who was talking about the fact that, of course, a lot of development experts will tell you that for you to develop and do projects, long-term projects, you need to borrow. You need to get assistance, aid, and all of that. But the question is how these monies are going to be spent and how it's going to be monitored so that it's not used for all the purposes at which it was gotten for initially. What would you tell Nigerians who are wondering, come on, we're getting another loan? How do you assure them that this is going to be judiciously used?
I want to assure all Nigerians that this is a fund that is going to be used judicially for purposes that are including health, social development, as well as bridging the very significant revenue shortfall that we have. We have had to put in place and assure the multilateral institutions that are borrowing us governance structures to ensure that the funds are used properly and that there is transparent reporting in the use of the funds. The National Assembly will, of course, be also exerting their oversight function on the use of these funds.
So at the end of the day, the big question is a lot of the countries around the world are experiencing some kind of shocks now because of what coronavirus has caused. There's been a lot of effect on economies, and the world has been said that the world will go into recession. Nigeria is not insulated from all of these troubles. But the question is, are you bothered as a Minister of Finance handling the nation's economy about our debt burden?
We are concerned about our debt burden. In fact, more concerned now because of the decline in revenue. Prior to the decline of revenue, we have been doing our debt sustainability analysis, and we were comfortable with the fact that we are able to pay our loans. Now the situation has changed in terms of this rude shock that we have gotten as a country, and that's the reason why we have to borrow more externally. These are very low cost loans, is 1%. This is money we have now that we can deploy for infrastructure that is very important for the development of our country, to also develop our health infrastructure and also develop human capital.
So, in that sense, a lot of people have advocated that China should pay because of the situation, perhaps the way they have handled the coronavirus situation. Are you of that school of thought too?
Please, can you repeat the question? I didn't get. There's a lot of noise on my end.
There are some people who have advocated that China should pay because of their handling of the coronavirus. Are you of that school of thought too?
No, I am not. I think there's a lot of speculations, whether rightly or wrongly. I think we all have to wait globally to see what the facts are, and we're aware that there are a number of investigations that are going on to determine the culpability of otherwise of China. In the meantime, I don't have any such views.
So, do you object, or are you working on a debt forgiveness process?
Well, there is already a debt forgiveness process that has been agreed by the G20. And Nigeria qualifies to the extent of the IDA loans that we have taken. But it's also open to any country that has taken multilateral agency loans, like from the World Bank to IDA. So that's an option that is open to us. It's an option that we can take or not. We're in the process of analyzing whether we should take it or not, because there are also conditions to the loans that we have taken, other loans that we have taken, bilateral loans as well as some of the multilateral loans. So in taking such offers, we have to look at how it affects the commitments we have already taken in existing loans. But this is something we're considering. And by the way, Charles, it's not debt forgiveness. It is actually deferment of the payment of obligations. So what you have is some space where there is a stay in your debt repayment, and you resume repayment later. So it's not forgiveness as such.
So are you saying that, for example, what we got in terms of the pardon for our debt in the case of the Paris Club is you're not looking at that kind of a window if it presents itself?
Well, if it presents itself, yes, we'll look at it, but we're not actively seeking for that right now. But if any bilateral or multilateral lender feels inclined to forgive Nigeria, we will be very happy in taking it.
Honourable Minister, can I ask you this evening, perhaps a sincere question? Do you think that we have borrowed well and rightly in the last 5 years or so?
Yes, we have. To the extent that our borrowing cost has been reduced over time, we've been able to extend the tenor by doing a process of rebalancing. So we now have longer tenor in terms of our debt obligations. We have refinanced loans that are high cost and short term to cheaper, longer term loans, which means we've been able to gradually reduce our debt service obligation over time.
So, because I was speaking with the Senate spokesperson earlier, and I asked him about cost of governance, loads and loads of people have said, look, there's just too much, we're top heavy in terms of how much is spent and how much goes in running government. As if there is any lesson that we have learned over these last few weeks since coronavirus ravaged the world, is there any lesson as to how much we want to cut on cost of governance? Honourable Minister, the question is, if there's any lesson we have learned over the last few weeks from the coronavirus, the pandemic, about the issues of the cost of governance, that we're top heavy, we spend so much money running government. Is this government thinking about how to cut down on cost of governance?
Yes, Charles, we're looking at doing that. The president has approved that this administration should implement the recommendations of the Orosenya report. So the Orosenya report is a report that has reviewed the whole of the size of government and has made very significant recommendations in terms of trimming, that is reducing the number of agencies, and that would mean merging some agencies together. And this is a report that has been in place for a long time, but there hasn't been implementation, but the president has approved that this should be implemented, and we have conveyed Mr. President's approval to the arms of government that are responsible for this, and that would be the Office of the Secretary of Government and the Head of Service of the Federation.
Let me ask you about the 850 billion naira loan as captured in that request, the letter sent by the president to the National Assembly. When are you drawing that loan?
Okay, so the 2020 budget is a law in itself. So the 2020 Appropriation Act has approval for a borrowing of 1.6 trillion. 750 billion of that is borrowing locally, and 850 billion of that is to borrow externally. So we made a report to the president on the back of this crisis to say that it is not practical now to go out internationally and borrow from the international capital markets because the costs are too high, and then locally, fortunately for us, the borrowing cost locally is low. So we advised the president, and he agreed that instead of going out to borrow at high cost, we might as well borrow locally at low cost. So what has been sent to the National Assembly is not a new borrowing. It is already approved in the 2020 Appropriation Act. Is a change of the means of financing from borrowing externally to borrowing locally. So it's already approved. So what we have from yesterday, the process of the Assembly is looking at is what we call a change of mix.
A quick one, Honorable Minister, is the unfortunate situation around the price of oil. Crude, of course, that's our mainstay, and is now below about $20 per barrel now. What you envisage is about $30 per barrel. What we have presently is just about 60% of what you envisage in your supplementary budget, which you predicated in your supplementary budget. If this continues for another month, how do you hope to cushion these shortfalls?
We actually have revised our projection of the $30 per barrel. We have not gone ahead to submit fully our
All right, I was asking the minister because we are having some glitches there as regarding the network there. Nigeria predicated because of the drop at first, the 2020 budget was predicated on the over $50 per barrel cost of crude, but now it was adjusted to $30 in the supplementary budget, but now we're having it about $21 per barrel. If this continues for another month, experts are saying that we might just be in trouble, but we want to know how the federal government hopes to get out of that sort of quagmire as it may present itself. And so we're hoping that the minister will be able to react to that. And if you have her back now, Honorable Minister, can you tell us how you hope to cushion how do you hope to handle the shortfalls if this continues for another month? Okay. All right, I understand that we are trying to still reconnect with the Honorable Minister. But